Walt Whitman was the man who revolutionized American poetry. He invented a whole new poetic form, and he opened up topics to a wide range that nobody else would touch.
Walt Whitman was born on May 31st, 1819, in West Hills, New York. His parents were of modest means, and he had 7 siblings.
At the age of 11, Walt Whitman was pulled from school so that he could help the family support itself in the printing industry. As a result, Whitman was largely self-taught.
He became a voracious reader. He read widely, especially in novels.
When he was 17, Whitman turned to teaching, and his first job was in a one-room schoolhouse. He taught for 5 years, and then in 1841, he set his sights on journalism.
Walt Whitman was a volatile editor and writer. He had strong ideas about women's property rights, about immigration, and about the major issue of the day, slavery.
From 1848 to 1850.
So yesterday, in the presentation, if you watched it or you just looked at it, what was one of this group of writers, romantics and transcendentalists, what did they believe in? Huh? Nature. Okay, specifically though, what did you just talk about? You talked about women's rights, immigrants, and
like the
abolition.
Issues of the current day.
Yeah, so they were like civil rights activists of the 1800s. Okay, they were the people who were pushing for the freeing of the slaves. They were the ones pushing for women's rights because they couldn't vote, they couldn't own property. It was a white man's world in reality, right? And they were kind of pushing for rights of all these other people. So they were the civil rights activists of the day.
5, Whitman began what was to become his greatest work, Leaves of Grass. His free verse, his stitching together of encyclopedic lists, completely broke with poetic and literary convention, and vastly influenced poets ever after, across the world.
It began as a book of very few poems and grew to one over the years to contain almost 300 poems. Over his lifetime, he had 7 editions of the book.
During the Civil War, Whitman moved to Washington, D.C. to attend his wounded brother George. He stayed in D.C. several years, working in the paymaster's office, and volunteered, visiting wounded soldiers.
When he went to the hospitals, there were limbs piled up outside. He spoke with young soldiers who had witnessed the most astonishing atrocities.
From his experience with the wounded during the war, he produced a small book of poems called Drum Taps. This is one of the only 2 accounts of the Civil War written by people who actually experienced it.
Whitman published 2 new collections of poems in 1870, Democratic Vistas and Passage to India.
Whitman was called the Bard of Democracy because all of his poems are based on the notion of a universal brotherhood. He thought that the possibility of America was to achieve a brotherhood that no other culture had yet been able to achieve.
Whitman suffered a stroke in 1873, leaving him partially paralyzed. He moved to Camden, New Jersey, where he remained until his death on March 26, 1892.
In his lifetime, Leaves of Grass was considered by many people to be a disgraceful book. But by the end of his life, he acquired the name the Good Gray Poet, as if America was finally ready in the later years to accept him as a poet.
Whitman never really received the attention that he deserved during his lifetime. It was only in the 20th century that we learned how to read his poetry and understand what he accomplished.
All right. So that's Walt for you. Okay. Again, did you catch the points where they were talking about free verse and saying that he was developing a distinctly American voice? He was trying to break barriers with what he wrote. Okay. He was one of the first users of free verse, which is when you do not rhyme in poetry. Okay. Typically, it had been a very strict poetic structure, and he was like, "We're going to do something different." Okay. What we're reading today is one of his poems from Leaves of Grass, which is what they were just talking about. So if you go onto your textbook and go to page 177.
Yeah, I tried to get on there and it didn't let me.
Yeah. Did it change our passwords again?
Leah can still get it. I asked if I could use her thing, but I didn't get it.
Alright. The thing I wanted you guys to do was read the background. Alright, so we have From Song of Myself. Does anyone want to read this? The background? Okay, I'll read it. Follow along, please. Walt Whitman, he was born 1819, died 1892. In his younger years, showed little indication of literary promise as he moved from one job to the next, so he wasn't supposed to be anybody, right, in literature. Finally, in the 1850s, he devoted himself completely to writing his collection of poems entitled Leaves of Grass. He printed the volume in 1855. It soon ignited a flurry of reaction from readers because of its content and form, both of which were considered revolutionary. Okay, they had never been done before. Many early readers scorned his efforts, but undeterred, Whitman continued working on the book for the rest of his life. Revising or rearranging existing poems and adding new poems, it has become recognized as the most influential book of poetry in American literature. Rejecting the rigidity of earlier poetic conventions. Remember we talked about that? He completely did not use the poetic conventions that were used previously. Whitman's poetry captures the vitality, optimism, and voice of America in a style that reflects the freedom and vastness of his beloved country. Okay? So Song of Myself is a long poem in 52 sections that appears in Leaves of Grass. So if you turn the page, okay, we can start reading it. So I expect, you know what, let's review this real quick. No, it's a couple pages. Okay. For your assignment today, I want you to do this as you read, okay? So have a chart open either on your computer, on paper, something. I have paper up there if you need it, okay? I want you to be charting the use of rhetorical devices within the poem, okay? So you may notice elements such as rhythm, rhyme, simile, metaphor. What's up? Any glue sticks? I think I have like 3. Yeah, you can look. In the side, there's some type of glue might be in there. Metaphor, okay, simile, tone, imagery, figures of speech, symbols, direct statements, okay, ethos, pathos, logos. Those are all rhetorical devices. Okay, so if you see something, I want you to chart it. What I want it to look like is on this assignment, obviously with like, you know, space and words in between. Okay. I want you to list the rhetorical device used, so like simile, and then put the example in the text. Does that make sense? Okay. So, no, go ahead. So for instance, you're finding all these devices, right? Not every single one, they might not all be in there. But if you find a simile, I want you to put rhetorical device used simile and then where it is in the text that simile is. So actually write down the word that uses the simile. Yeah, Max.
Is there like a specific amount?
No, but if you get like 2, then I'm going to be like, you didn't try very hard. Okay? Because there's a ton. Remember, this guy worked on it for his entire life, so you can bet there's a lot of rhetoric in here. Okay? All right, are we ready? All right, follow along.
Number 1, I celebrate myself and sing myself. I celebrate myself and sing myself. And what I assume, you shall assume, for every atom belonging to me, as good belongs to you. I loaf and invite my soul. I lean and loaf at my ease, observing a spear of summer grass. My tongue, every atom of my blood, formed from this soil, this air, born here of parents, born here from parents the same, and their parents the same, I, now 37 years old, in perfect health, begin, hoping to cease, not till death. Creeds and schools in abeyance, retiring back a while, sufficed at what they are, but never forgotten. I harbor, for good or bad, I permit to speak at every hazard. Nature without check, with original energy.
Okay. So what's a rhetorical device that he uses heavily here? Yeah, Grace. Okay, where?
This is Iowa.
Okay.
This is myself quite a bit. And later he says the same a lot.
Okay, he says the same a lot. Now, what about the rhyme scheme? Okay, so if there's no rhyme, what's it called? Free verse. Okay. You should be documenting your rhetorical devices.
Example for reverse.
You can just pick, you can do like 2 lines as an example, and then you can put like dot to dot, then like the last line or something. Okay. All right. So look at lines 1 through 3. It says, I celebrate myself and sing myself, and what I assume you shall assume. For every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. Okay? I want you to figure out what is the point of those lines? What is he establishing himself as, Max? No, it could. Because he's using I do this, you do this. I do this, you do this. If he's, yeah, you can say that's parallel structure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Katie. I lean and loaf, because that could be alliteration. Yes. Okay. So back to my question. Those first 3 lines. I celebrate myself and sing myself, and what I assume you shall assume. For every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. What is the purpose? What is he doing there? What is he setting up? He's setting himself up as an individual, but also as a representative of others. Can anyone continue with that? Does that make sense? Maybe? Okay. He's making very clear that he's an individual, but he's also part of a bigger community. Correct? Okay. Does that make sense? He's saying, I celebrate myself and sing myself, and what I assume, you shall assume. For every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. Okay? It's kind of like an individual versus community thing.
So what would be the rhetorical guys?
There's several. Katie pointed out, what's up, Amber? Okay. Thank you.
There's alliteration.
There's alliteration. There's free verse. What else did we talk about, Carson? Yeah. What else? Grace pointed out some parallelism, so did Max. Okay. There's some repetition involved. You don't have to put like 8 things. You can just document a couple. Okay. Okay. So I want you to think about Ronnie, Leanna, stay with me real quick, okay? I want you to think about the romantic philosophy of focusing on what element of the world. What's out that window?
Nature.
Nature! Thank you, Grace, okay? Read the last stanza again. Creeds and schools in abeyance. Okay? Abeyance means, okay, it actually says right here. Temporary suspension or inactivity, okay? Creeds and schools in abeyance. Retiring back a while, sufficed at what they are, but never forgotten. I harbor, for good or bad, I permit to speak at every hazard. Nature without check, with original energy. Okay? What do you think he's saying about nature there? Poetry's hard, guys, right? What is he suggesting about philosophy versus nature? Joe, are you with me? Okay. What's he suggesting about philosophy versus nature in this stanza? Creeds means like, yeah, like philosophical beliefs, like a creed, like a manifesto kind of. Okay, so if creeds in schools are temporarily suspended, they're not active. Okay, and then at the end he's talking about nature without check with original energy. What is he comparing between philosophy and thought and nature or intuition. Think about what the Romantics valued. They valued nature, right? So he's saying here, he's saying that the speaker is drawing inspiration. So this poet is drawing inspiration from nature, not the schools and the creeds. Okay?
So we'll see
That's hard for us.
how important is it for us to understand this?
Huh?
You go. I'll go next.
How important is it for us to really understand this?
I mean, you need to be able to understand poetry.
You need words on it.
Poetry, I've never been able to understand. Like, straight up, never been able to understand it. It makes no sense.
Okay, so let's go through the next one and read it like line by line and then go from there. Okay? So I'll give you guys do we need 2 more minutes before we start? Okay, so people are still...
So do we create a new chart? For
No. You can just chart all the way through it. Okay? These are all different poems from the actual thing.
So, like, what's the minimum amount of ones that you want us to
You
have?
should probably have at least 2 per poem. This is another poem. There's 4.
Okay.
Okay. We're just waiting for people to finish their charts, and then we're going on the next one. What are we doing?
Chart, right? Like on the next one.
Yeah, just go with the same chart. You don't need to do a new chart every single one. No. Huh? You need at least 2 per poem. Okay, so you have 2, right? You found 2 devices? Yeah. Okay, you're good. Alright, so go to the next page. This is a new poem. It's like 1.5 pages. Alright? So I'll read the whole thing through and then we'll go back. Okay? Joe, Ronnie, Leanna. Did you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay? So we'll read the whole thing together and then we'll go back and piece it together to make sure we understand it.
Wait, so I'm confused.
What?
So we find 2 examples.
At least.
On per poem.
No, none of each one. You're finding rhetorical devices yourself, right? So, what did you find in that poem? The alliteration?
Yeah.
Okay, and you found free verse maybe? Okay, good. That's fine. So now find 2 more examples of rhetorical devices. They could be anything you see.
For all the poems?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Alright.
All right, this is a new poem. This is number 6. A child said, "What is the grass?" What? No.
Number 6. A child said, "What is the grass?" A child said, "What is the grass?" fetching it to me with full hands. How could I answer the child? I do not know what it is any more than he. I guess it must be the flag of my disposition, out of hopeful green stuff woven. Or, I guess it is the handkerchief of the Lord, a scented gift and remembrancer designedly dropped, bearing the owner's name some way in the corners that we may see and remark and say, whose? Or, I guess the grass is itself a child, the produced babe of the vegetation. Or, I guess it is a uniform hieroglyphic, and it means sprouting alike in broad zones and narrow zones, growing among black folks as among white, Canuck, Tuckahoe, Congressman, Cuff. I give them the same. I receive them the same. And now, it seems to me, the beautiful, uncut hair of graves. Tenderly will I use you, curling grass. It may be you transpire from the breasts of young men. It may be, if I had known them, I would have loved them. It may be you're from old people, or from offspring taken soon out of their mother's laps. And here, you are the mother's laps. The grass is very dark to be from the white heads of old mothers, darker than the colorless beards of old men, dark to come from under the faint red roofs of mouths. Oh, I perceive after all so many uttering tongues, and I perceive they do not come from the roofs of mouths for nothing. I wish I could translate the hints about the dead young men and women. What do you think has become of the young and old men? And what do you think has become of the women and children? They are alive and well somewhere. The smallest sprout shows there is really no death. And if ever there was, it led forward life, and does not wait at the end to arrest it, and ceased the moment life appeared. All goes onward and outward. Nothing collapses. And to die is different from what anyone supposed. And
luckier. Okay? So, stop what you're doing. Okay? Stop what you're doing with the liturgical devices and let's discuss this poem. Okay? A child said, "What is the grass?" fetching it to me with full hands. How could I answer the child? I do not know what it is any more than he. What's happening? Someone describe it. Nolan.
I think it's a metaphor for understanding how the world works and nobody actually
Okay.
pin down an acceptance.
Okay, so you think it's a metaphor? Okay, literally, right? A kid came to him. Guys, Joe, Grace, Ronnie, stay with me, okay? A kid literally came to him with a handful of grass and says, "What is the grass?" He's like, "I don't know." Okay? No one's saying this is bigger. This is a metaphor. Okay? "I guess it must be the flag of my disposition, out of hopeful green stuff woven. Or I guess it is the handkerchief of the Lord, a scented gift and remembrancer designedly dropped, bearing the owner's name some way in the corners, that we may see, remark, and say, 'Whose?'" Okay, so what is this?
Us. Or I guess it is the handkerchief of the Lord. I feel like that's the answer.
Okay.
And then they're comparing it.
They're comparing it to the Lord. They're comparing it the flag of his disposition. Okay, disposition is like your emotions and your feelings towards things. Max.
I think the majority of the poem is comparing the grass to things, so I guess.
Okay, so in this case, he's comparing grass to all of these things, right? He's saying that grass has a universal, what else? A spiritual and a personal or physical relationship, right, to the world, correct? He's making a metaphor for grass. He's not literally talking about the grass. He's making a metaphor. Okay, let's keep going. I shouldn't hear any typing right now. Ronnie. "Or I guess the grass is itself a child, the produced babe of the vegetation. Or I guess it is a uniform hieroglyphic, and it means sprouting alike in broad zones and narrow zones, growing among black folks as among whites. Canuck, Tuckahoe, Congressman Cuff, I give them the same, I receive them the same." Okay? This is now a slang term, which are offensive for French Canadians. Okay? So, what is he doing here by connecting all this stuff with the grass? What's he doing? What's he saying?
It's like, is it connecting them all? Is it...
Well, what do you think? What's he doing? What's he doing there?
I feel like it's no matter the race or whatever grass it grows.
Yes, it connects them. Okay, Nolan, did you want to add to
Yeah, I
that?
was just saying, no matter who owns the property, who lives on the land, it's still going to prove no matter
Yes.
what person or where you're from.
Okay. So he's now saying grass is what connects all these people the same. Okay, let's keep going. "And now it seems to me the beautiful uncut hair of graves." What does it mean? Nolan?
Basically, on like a more scientific standard, like when bodies decompose
Okay.
and stuff, they help grass.
Yes. So when you bury a body in a grave, grass grows on it. Okay, so now we're comparing grass to death. Tenderly will I use you, curling grass. It may be you transpire from the breasts of young men. It may be if I had known them, I would have loved them. It may be you are from old people or from offspring taken too soon out of their mother's laps. And here you are the mother's laps. The grass is very dark to be from the white heads of old mothers, darker than the colorless beards of old men, dark to come from under the faint red roofs of mouths. Okay? What is this? Do you guys see this? Look at this. It may be, it may be, it may be. What's that called? Heroism! Woo! Okay. So now he's comparing everything to death, correct? And remember, what is he saying? He's saying no matter who dies here, the grass still grows. Okay? Katie.
This is a different,
Okay, go ahead.
So, in the first, in the four of the stanzas, it's I guess or I guess. Is that wrong?
Yes, man. Good job. Okay. Oh, I perceive after all so many uttering tongues, and I perceive they do not come from the roofs of mouths for nothing. I wish I could translate the hints about the dead young men and women, and the hints about old men and mothers, and the offspring taken soon out of their laps. What do you think has become of the young and old men? And what do you think has become of the women and the children? Who do you think he's asking this question to? Grace. Grass. Is he talking to the grass, or is he talking to the kid that asked him about the grass? Okay, what do you think has become of the young and old men? They're now grass, right? And what do you think has become of the women and children? They're grass, okay? They are alive and well somewhere. What does that mean? All the people that died, they're alive and well somewhere. The smallest sprout shows there is really no death. And if ever there was it led forward life and does not wait at the end to arrest it and cease the moment life appeared. Grace, what were you saying?
They're alive and well somewhere is talking about how they're alive as grass, and then the small sprout shows that there's really no death, meaning that there's no death because they're alive as grass.
Yes. Okay. All goes onward and outward, nothing collapses, and to die is different from what anyone supposed and luckier. What does that mean? And to die is different from what anyone supposed and luckier. Someone besides Max, Nolan, or Grace. Sydney, Ronnie, Carson, Jarrett, Leanna, Joe. Last line. And to die is different from what anyone supposed and luckier. What does he mean by that? Sydney, you got an idea? Okay, well, we're talking about the cyclical nature of life, right? The fact that these people die or put in graves and grass grows. And then he says, and to die is different from what anyone supposed. What do you think he's saying about death? No. I'm sticking with Sydney. What do you think he's saying about death? If it's not what anyone expected, it's better. Do we just die? Or is he saying that there's not death? Death isn't just death. There's more to it. Do you think this could be a metaphor for heaven? Maybe. Okay. Do you think this could be a metaphor for if you are not religious? This is a metaphor for an afterlife in general. Yes. Okay. So he's not just, the whole thing is a comparison of grass and the fact that grass grows amongst all people, any people, rich, poor, white, Indian, Canadian, okay, dead, alive. All right. And then he's also making the comparison to the fact that grass grows from the dead. As a metaphor for life doesn't just end, right? That's proof that there's an afterlife in some way, shape, or form. Okay? You guys, you understood that fine.
It was easier to understand because
The metaphor was very clear, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's grass.
So go ahead, and there was a lot of rhetorical devices. There were a lot of rhetorical devices in that reading. Okay? Go ahead and go through.
Do you want us to share?
No, just go ahead and mark on your own paper, okay? Because there was parallelism, there was metaphor, there was repetition, There was,
What's the metaphor?
well, the whole thing was a metaphor, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like how
You can explain it. You don't have to use a quote. So just explain.
this is a poem.
This is a poem. These are all poems.
Oh, this is Spanish.
Yes.
So, whenever you do a PowerPoint or something,
Yeah.
take notes on it so I actually pay attention. Do you want me to turn those words into?
That's for you. Right?
No, that's for yourself. We would always take notes and subtract it, so.
There's no point. It doesn't help me to for you to take notes and learn something and give it to me but not be able to use in the future. I don't see the point. Alright. Are we ready? Even if you're not, go ahead and stop so we can just get a couple more poems in so you understand them. Okay? The next poem is a stance on slavery. Okay, did we hear that, Joe, Ronnie? It's a stance on slavery. Okay? So, I want you to connect this with, I want you to understand, like, going into the context when he's talking about the man in the situation. He's talking about slavery. Okay?
The man is slavery versus
He's describing a situation of a slave. Okay? But it's a bigger statement, right? Alright, Carson, Max, Sydney, stop typing for a sec. Follow along, okay?
From number 33. I understand the large hearts of heroes. I understand the large hearts of heroes. The courage of present times and all times. How the skipper saw the crowded and rudderless wreck of the steamship, and death chasing it up and down the storm. How he knuckled tight and gave not back an inch, and was faithful of days and faithful of nights, and chalked in large letters on a board, "Be of good cheer. We will not desert you." How he followed with them, and tacked with them 3 days, and would not give it up. How he saved the drifting company at last. How the lank, loose-gowned women looked when boated from the side of their prepared graves. How the silent, old-faced infants, and the lifted sick, and the sharp-lipped, unshaved men. All this I swallow. It tastes good. I like it well. It becomes mine. I am the man. I suffered. I was there. The disdain and calmness of martyrs. The mother of old, condemned for a witch, burnt with dry wood, her children gazing on. The hounded slave that flags in the race, leans by the fence blowing, covered with sweat. The twinges that sting like needles, his legs and neck. The murderous buckshot and the bullets. All these I feel, or am. I am the hounded slave. I wince at the bite of the dogs. Hell and despair are upon me. Crack and again crack the marksman. I clutch the rails of the fence. My gore drips, thinned with the ooze of my skin. I fall in the weeds and stones. The riders spur their unwilling horses, haul close, taunt my dizzy ears, and beat me violently over the head with whipstocks. Agonies are one of my changes of garments. I do not ask the wounded person how he feels. I myself become the wounded person. My hurts turn livid upon me as I lean on a cane and observe.
Okay. That one's kind of like dark. right? Can anyone describe to me what's happening in this poem?
It kind of seemed like he was like switching between the slave owner and then the slave.
Okay, how so?
Because he would say all of it after he was like describing on what they had to go through, like for the journey to get there. He said, "All this I swallow, it tastes good. I like it well. It becomes mine." Almost as like he's about to buy them.
Okay.
But then he would say something like, "I am the hounded slave. I wince at the bite of dogs." So then he becomes the slave.
Okay.
But then he's like, "I do not ask the wounded person how he feels. I myself become the wounded person." So he like.
Do you think he's changing voices at the end there again to maybe his own voice?
Yeah.
Okay, Katie.
So at the beginning it says how the skip was overcrowded and there was wreck of the escape ship and death chasing it up and down.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought of it as like a speeder ship that sank with all the slaves.
Okay, there we go. How did the slaves get to the United States from Africa?
They were
By
taken.
ship. Okay, they were taken by ship, put in chains, put across the ocean, okay? So this could be describing the experience on the actual ship, right? And then the slave says, "The hounded slave that flags in the race leans by the fence blowing covered with sweat. The twinges that sting like needles, his legs and neck, the murderous buckshot and the bullets. All these I feel or am. I am the hounded slave. I wince at the bite of the dogs." What does he mean by that? I wince at the bite of the dogs. How do you think they chased down runaway slaves?
The dogs.
Okay, how do you think they got dogs? Or how do you think they got slaves back in to corral them, right? Dogs. Okay. And then it says, "Hell and despair are upon me. Crack and again crack the marksman. I clutch the rails of the fence, my gorged ribs thinned with the ooze of my skin. I fall on the weeds and stones. The riders spur their unwilling horses haul close, taunt my dizzy ears, and beat me violently over the head with whipstocks." Okay? Do you think he's at work? Do you think he's a runaway slave?
I feel like he's running away and they caught him.
Okay.
I think he's working and he like did something wrong.
Okay. He got tired or something? All of those are we can't ask him, right? So one thing I want to point out, Grace will get to you in a second, hon. That situation right there, could you picture all of that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what kind of rhetorical device is that?
Imagery.
Grace, what were you going to say?
I feel like all of these I feel or am is important.
Yes.
Because like
Yes.
talking about all the like bad things and stuff. Like the murderous gunshots and the bullets, I feel like he's saying like from himself, not in the person of the slave or the slaveholder. I feel like he's saying that as himself. Like I'm either like I can either sympathize with those things
Yes.
or I am those things. Like I'm the one who's hurting them by not saying
Okay. And look at the title of the poem. I understand the large hearts of heroes. Who is he comparing to a hero? The slave. Okay? That could be a rhetorical device too, that metaphor. Okay? Now, Grace, you said you think that he keeps saying I feel or I am. The other way to look at this is he describing what he sees?
And feel.
He doesn't even say ever see, he says feels. Okay? Is he blind? Or is he to a point of such degradation that he only feels now? The slave.
Not blind.
Okay?
So what?
Things to think about. Alright? So rhetorical devices, we talked about imagery, we talked about in the title, I understand the large hearts of heroes. Okay? Would that be an illusion? Would that be a metaphor? Okay? There's a ton of repetition, parallelism, okay? The rhetorical what? The rhetorical device used here? There's a ton. Imagery, the one I talked about? Yes, the imagery is wild. Okay. And in the first stanza, do you guys see how death is capitalized? That could be a rhetorical device, correct? Capitalization, why is he capitalizing that?
to emphasize it.
Okay, to emphasize it, point out the value in death. Okay, that's rhetorical device. Got use capitalization like that. Good. Alright, you guys have 2 more to do that are short, okay? Oh, I'm sorry, it's only 1 more. It's just 2 pages. We can start it. You have 3 minutes. I can read it to you, we can go over it, but you can't stay because I have a lot to do in prep. But we can do it in 4th, too. Okay. I'll play it really quick just so you guys get the vibe. Ronnie, you have 3 minutes. Oh yeah, you can go. If you want to stay and watch it and listen and go over this real quick, you can. Otherwise, you can go.
And we have to have 2 for each poem, right?
At least 2. What? Yeah, unless you want to stay for the last one. Okay. The Spotted Hawk. Alright, kiddos, last poem if you want to say. Here we go.
Number 52. The spotted hawk swoops by. The spotted hawk swoops by and accuses me. He complains of my gab and my loitering. I too am not a bit tamed. I too am untranslatable. I sound my barbaric yawp over the roofs of the world. The last scud of day holds back for me. It flings my likeness after the rest, and true as any on the shadowed wilds, it coaxes me to the vapor and the dusk. I depart as air. I shake my white locks at the runaway sun. I effuse my flesh in eddies, and drift it in lacy jags. I bequeath myself to the dirt to grow from the grass I love. If you want me again, look for me under your boot soles. You will hardly know who I am or what I mean, but I shall be good health to you nevertheless, and filter and fibre your blood. Failing to fetch me at first, keep encouraged. Missing me one place, search another. I stop somewhere, waiting for you.
Hey, what the heck? Oh!
The other poem was...
No, it's repeated in my book. Like the same page is repeated. Interesting.
So is he talking from the standpoint of the hawk or from the person?
Okay, this poem's really confusing.
So the way I kind of see it is like 2 poems ago he was talking about like how like death makes the grass grow. He's like in the ground, he's death, and he's making like he's like he's the dirt, he's like the grass, and then in like line 9 and 10, he's talking about like I bequeath myself to the dirt to grow from the grass I love.
Mm-hmm.
If you want me again, look for me under your boot soles. Like he's like on people's shoes. Like he's like he is the dirt, he is the grass. He's like, does that make sense?
He's kind of like comparing himself to nature.
Yeah.
Right?